The main thing that I want to say is just don't be afraid. Put yourself out there. I don't care if you were a freshman, a senior, you're like a not untraditional student who maybe is going to college a little bit later. Just put yourself out there. I feel like one of my biggest regrets from college is really not starting all of this sooner.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the TAKAGAI family. If you're new to this channel, my name is Taka, and through this platform, I encourage college students to cultivate a positive and growth mindset alongside with guest speakers who come from all walks of life. And today, I'm super excited to have Daniela Beck. She's currently calling in all the way from the US. She's working at Microsoft as a business program manager. Daniela, thanks for your time today. Really appreciate it. And welcome to the channel.
Oh, thank you so much. It's great to be here.
Awesome. And to give everyone a little bit of quick context, Daniela and I met in 2019 at Harvard Business School through the Peak Weekend program. It's a 3-day program effectively for college students who want to experience what it's like to be an MBA student at HBS. And over the course of 3 days, effectively you go through courses with faculty from HBS through the famous case method, as well as some networking opportunities with MBA students and alumni and some fun social events along that. And it turns out that based on the assigned seating, Daniela and I happened to sit next to each other throughout the courses. So that was a lot of fun, no?
Yeah, absolutely. And just to go off of what you were saying, I would highly recommend that you apply. I think for me, and I think Taka could say this as well, it was a life-changing experience. I've met so many people that I still talk to from this day, from those 3 days. So definitely something that I would recommend that you check out and apply for.
Absolutely, yeah. And for those of you who are interested in the Peak Weekend program, I'll put the link in the description below. So when you have the time, definitely go check that out. And I think more importantly today, the audience is probably interested to hear your thoughts and take when it comes to personal and professional development. So without further ado, let's get right to it. Let's start with, where you grew up. You grew up in Pennsylvania, right?
I did, yes. So I grew up in a small town outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, a couple thousand people. That was the population. And yeah, it's just like not a very, it's pretty like a pretty basic, like American small town. You have the stores, you have like suburbia, you have, like just like the normal things that come along with that. So for me personally, it was pretty not super diverse, and it was pretty, it was pretty standard, I would say. But for me growing up, I always enjoyed technology. I always enjoyed just like messing around with computers, which I still do to this day. So that's amazing. And that's really something I was always interested in. And then when I was in high school, I took a couple of like business classes, and I realized, wait, can I put these interests that I have for business and technology together? And at that point, I decided to pursue my MIS degree, or my Management Information Systems degree. So I ended up moving to Pittsburgh in 2017 to start my bachelor's degree in information systems. And then I later added my international business second degree, to just get a little bit more of that global context for how things work in the real world. Because a lot of times, when you have an internship or a job, you're working with people from other countries, different time zones. You have to understand how they work, how they communicate. And I feel like a lot of those classes I did on the international business major definitely gave me a very good idea of like, okay, this is how, based off of where people are from, their culture, the way that they talk, these are kind of the ways that maybe you can best, communicate with them, and how you can best, solve problems and work together. So yeah, that was pretty much my undergrad. During undergrad as well, I did a few different internships, mostly in financial services, as well in the manufacturing sector as well. And I also had a couple amazing experiences. I know we had mentioned Peak Weekend from HBS, which I would highly recommend. I went to the Anita B. Grace Hopper celebration twice in 2018 and 2019, which if you're a woman interested in technology, I would highly recommend for you to go to that as well. I was a Forbes 30 under 30 scholar last October, which was also an amazing experience. I got to see many of my peak weekend friends there, so that was lovely. And yeah, so then I graduated in December of last year with my degree.
Awesome, awesome. And then take us through that journey after you graduated in 2019.
Yeah, so it's been quite a rocky ride, as you all know. I think COVID has impacted everyone in some shape or form. For me, I was mentioning this earlier. I'm a very planning, organized. I just want to have all my ducks in a row, right? So I had an internship lined up for the first probably 4 or 5 months of the year in Chicago, working in a manufacturing company doing IT project management. And then after that, about, I would say in January, I got an offer to work for a big entertainment company in Florida, doing product management for them. And then I had also, by that point, I had gotten the offer for my current role at Microsoft doing business program management. So I had, the whole year planned. I'm going to be in Chicago from this to this time, visit my parents for a week, then go to Florida, visit my parents for a week, and then move to Seattle maybe for a week or two, and then like start my job.
Yeah.
And then what I found, is everything seemed to be going well. And then of course, the pandemic hit in March here in the US, and it was really scary for me personally, because at that point I was living in a suburb of Chicago. None of my family was around. I didn't have any friends. Everybody was like far away, and I'm like another part of the country. And I'm like, oh no, like what am I going to do? So like that first week or two was super, super scary. But I decided to stay put, because at that point, none of us really knew how
Right.
big or how long this would be.
Mhm.
That was kind of how I dealt with it. And then probably in about early April, once we knew, okay, this is way bigger of a problem than we had thought, I'd start getting some impacts on my internship. At that point, I decided, okay, I'm going back home to Pennsylvania. So fortunately, I took a flight in the middle of the pandemic, which was kind of, because that was the point, everybody didn't know what it was, and it was super scary. So I had like my gloves on, had my mask, I had everything ready to go. And
Yeah.
I ended up going back home on this like huge plane, and there was like only 3 other people on the whole flight. And there was probably more like staff, like flight attendants and the pilot and everything, more than there were people on the plane. It was like very
Wow.
different. So then I came back to Pennsylvania. I'm still working remotely from that internship that I had in
Mhm.
Chicago before, because I had still had that job, but I was working 50% capacity, because obviously like COVID had an impact on this company. And then probably in May, I kind of started to feel some warning signs that I was going to get furloughed from this internship. So I was
Right.
like, well, I need to start looking for something else. And then I also lost the previous summer opportunity that I had lined up, right? So I was pretty much back to square one. And obviously, having graduated, certain opportunities weren't open to me anymore as far as like internships. And then for temp work, what I found is they usually wanted people with a couple years of experience, which coming out of undergrad, I didn't have either. So it's
Right.
like, oh no, what am I going to do? So I was on LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn. I ended up finding an internship opportunity at this cryptocurrency startup, and they didn't have like a requirement that you had to be in school. So I was like, okay, I'll just take a shot on this, see what happens. And I ended up getting the job, which was really great. And I think it was honestly like just what I needed, because I was just having so much panic about paying my bills. What am I going to do? I'm not going to have a job. And just having that gave me a huge sigh of relief. And then also gaining more valuable work experience, right? So
Mhm.
I was there for 3 months. I worked on a compliance team. So my role was compliance tools and strategic initiatives. And essentially what that means is I did a lot of project management for them. I also did a lot of dashboarding, reporting, and analytics in Jira,
Mhm.
using this plugin that's like very similar to Tableau. So I was doing some like metrics and reporting for some of the senior management. And
Nice.
I feel like that was a really good experience having that, because now I've had internships across the country, in New York, financial services the summer before, in Chicago at the beginning of the year, and then in SF. I think it really gave me a well-rounded perspective of like different parts of the country, how
Mhm.
people work, like what's work culture life like, because coming from a small town in southwestern Pennsylvania, that's not really something that you're exposed to, right? So I think that
Right.
was super helpful. Ended up finishing that internship, and then right around that time, that's when I started my job at Microsoft.
Awesome, awesome. So I want to stop you there. Before it was Coinbase, correct, in San
Yeah.
Francisco. You said you reached out, on LinkedIn when you were going through the tough times. What was going on in your head in terms of how were you able to sort of switch into a mindset from like a passive to, active?
I think a lot of times I tend to be a very of a warrior person. So
Yeah.
sometimes I get stuck in my head about different things. And I think definitely after I lost that opportunity in Florida, I was in my head for probably a solid 2 to 3 weeks. I was just like, oh no, I lost this job. I am so sad. Like I can't do anything anymore. I'm probably gonna lose this other job too, right? That I had in Illinois. But I
Right.
try to reframe it and be like, okay, well, maybe this isn't going to work out, but maybe I can just see what else is out there and just give it a chance, right? And this
Mhm.
is something that was my motto throughout undergrad as well, like applying for Peak Weekend, applying for the internships that nobody from my school had like ever even thought about doing before. I was
Right.
like, if I could try and maybe I get it, maybe I don't, that's fine. But at least if I put myself out there, I might have like a 5% chance of getting it rather than a 0% chance if I don't put myself out there at all. So I think it was really just about motivating myself, just seeing, hey, like I have something to offer. I have all these internship experiences that I've had up to that point. So I think I had like 4 internships
Yeah.
before like going into Coinbase. I was like, yeah,
Mhm.
maybe I can just use this to my advantage. Did the interview. I know during my interview, I had to give a presentation on the travel rule in the crypto space. I didn't even know anything about cryptocurrency at all. And they're like, yeah, you have 4 days to put this presentation together. And I was like, 4 days to learn about all of this stuff? This is crazy. Like they're thinking I'm a pro. But then it's like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to take on the challenge. And yes, my brain did hurt. Yes, it was like a lot of information that probably even when I was giving the presentation, I didn't understand fully at the time.
Mm.
But, I think just putting yourself out there and taking those risks and just really trying to imagine yourself being successful. I think those are all things that I think really pushed me through that hard time,
Yeah.
got me to Coinbase and ended up, helping me to get through that difficult period.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I can't I obviously wasn't in your shoes, so I can't experience the pain, but I understand sort of the importance of resilience. And when it comes to, there's as college kids where when we're looking for internships and so on, really what's great is that every application you send out, there's no cost to it, right? It's pretty much free and you send it out, if you don't send it out, it's a 0% chance you're going to get in. If you do send it out, it's at least 1% chance, right? So why not go for it? So I think having that mentality to be able to think from a different perspective would definitely help when it comes to that mindset.
Yeah, and just something I want to add too. So, you have that 1% chance of getting something, you end up getting it. And what I found over time is it started to compound, right? So getting
Mm,
into peak my internship that I got into helped me get into peak weekend, which peak
yeah.
weekend helped me get into this, which then the other thing helped me do that. So a lot of times I think it's just those compounding wins. I think for me has been super helpful and has really helped me to get to the point that I'm at now.
Yeah, absolutely. And looking at your experience, you've you've gone through so much. I feel like you're 4 or 5 internships, and going from the financial service space to manufacturing, and then now cryptocurrency. Very diverse experience you have, and now you're in a very an amazing spot at Microsoft. How's that been?
That's been really good. Thanks for asking. So what I do, I work in digital marketing.
Hmm.
I do a lot of like campaigns, email, banner, essentially just finding new channels where we can reach stakeholders, both external customers and then also internal people that we work with as well. Primarily account managers, sales, anybody that's just really going out there and working with the customer for one of our various offerings, right? So
Okay.
it's been really good. I think it's been different for me. I've definitely been feeling some imposter syndrome because in my role and in my part of the organization at Microsoft, what you'll find is that there's a lot of very senior people who have been in this space for 10, 15, 20 years, right? So
Right.
coming out of college and being young coming out of college too, was like very, very challenging because it's not like maybe there was a generational gap. Maybe, I
Mhm.
just don't have the experience that some of these other people do on my team. But how I've tried to reframe that in my mind, and this goes back to that earlier example I gave about losing my internships and having to find something. It's just about rephrasing it, right? So instead of saying,
Right.
"Oh my God, I don't know anything. I'm like so dumb. I shouldn't have this job. Why did they hire me?" I try, and this is a struggle for me sometimes, but I just try to
Mhm.
say, okay, they hired me for a reason. I have fresh perspective. I have new ideas. I can bring some fresh energy into the company, and I can learn a lot from these people, right? I can learn a lot for these leads that I have on my projects that have been in this space for years and years and years, and just grow faster, right? Because I can learn and leverage their experiences.
Yeah, I love that way of thinking. There's one side, which is, I would say, the sort of negative way of thinking, is that you're the youngest person, you're dumb, I don't know anything, so I have nothing to contribute. But in fact, actually, whoever you are and at whatever stage in your life you are, whether you're a freshman in college, and you just got an internship and you're working at a firm with, a bunch of senior people, you have that fresh, if you look at it from the other side, you have that fresh perspective, coming as a young generation, right? Maybe more related to from a customer's point of view. You might be able to give a customer perspective on how the Gen Z, Gen Y are looking at, the products within the offerings that you give in your company. So I think the way you think, the mindset that you go in, really determines how well you perform on the job, as well as your physical and mental being. I think it impacts that a lot.
No, absolutely. That's a great point.
With that being said, what the college students who are probably listening later on are probably interested to hear, what are some of the advices you would give? I know we've already talked about really amazing advice so far, but what do you have for us?
Oh my goodness. I have too many things that I would want to say, but I guess the main thing that I want to say is just don't be afraid. Put yourself out there. I don't care if you were a freshman, a senior, you're like a not untraditional student who maybe is going to college a little bit later. Just put yourself out there. I feel like one of my biggest regrets from college is really not starting all of this sooner. Because I remember my first semester, it was not the best. I ended up being in the hospital for 5 days at the end of my first semester. So that was kind of how much of a train wreck that was. And I remember coming into my second semester, January of 2018, and I was still recovering from my hospitalization. And I was
What
still like,
happened?
oh my God, like I am so out of this. Like I don't even feel like doing anything. And I was like, yeah, I didn't really have a lot of hopes or dreams or like goals for myself that were really ambitious, right? So then I was like really not feeling that great. And then I had a friend of mine, and I'm super grateful for this, who pulled me aside and they said, Daniela, like you should really try for an internship. And I was like, what? What? Like I couldn't believe it, right? Because I was like, first of all, I've only been in college for 3 months. I have like taken pretty much no classes. I don't have any relevant work experience. I didn't
Yeah.
even have my on-campus job at that point. And you're telling me to go and get an internship. Wow. Okay. Wow. And I couldn't believe it. But then, I got some more encouragement. I started to kind of see it from that person's point of view. And I was like, you know what? Yeah, I could try for an internship. The worst thing they're going to tell me is no. So then I applied. I ended up getting an internship, and it wasn't for that summer. And although it wasn't like my favorite thing in the world, it got me in the door, right? It got my foot in the door. I got to have some experience. And then that really helped me. Like I said, those compounding wins, that
Yeah.
really helped me get that opportunity in New York at BlackRock. That helped me get that opportunity at Bosch and Coinbase and then at Microsoft, right? So all of it kind of compounds. And I would say the earlier that you start and the earlier that you push yourself to do those things, the better your outcome would look. I'd always want to think like, oh man, if I had started this like my first semester in college, like imagine even maybe how much more that I would have done. like now versus maybe if, had started at the point that I had. But even if you're starting late, I mean, it's never too late to really make a difference in your life. And, I've been super fortunate, but I think a lot of it, again, is just putting yourself out there, being confident, and, just building a community of people who are like-minded, right? So that would really be the advice that I would want to share with all of you today.
Absolutely. Thanks, Daniela. I think no matter, yeah, even if you're a senior right now and you think, oh, like Daniela's done so much, I'm still a senior with, for example, no internship. I think it's not late at all to start literally today, putting yourself out there and reaching out to different companies. Whether you get it or not, I think it's just a matter of numbers, to be honest.
Yeah, it's all a numbers game. Like, really, I think even once I did have more experience, I don't know how many times, like, I still get rejected for things. And now I know at the beginning I would feel bad about it. I'd put myself down and be like, oh my God, this company hates me. But then
Yeah.
when you think about it, where it's like, oh, it's just an algorithm, it's just ATS doesn't like me today, that's fine. I can just apply for something else tomorrow. Not a big, not a huge problem, right? But yeah, I think it's just reframing that now that it's rejection, it's a normal part of the process and it's something that everybody goes through. I think it's just how you view it really determines your outcome.
Yeah, yeah. I wish I had that advice when I was a freshman because that would have made my life a lot easier. So, for those, yeah, I really hope that for those who are listening, take this at heart and really start implementing. I think just start doing and acting is like probably you're like halfway there already. So, I would highly recommend that for sure. Yeah, and I think the last thing I want to touch on is you love putting content out there. I love your articles and so on. Talk to me
Thank
about that.
Yeah, so with LinkedIn, it was kind of one of those other things that I just kind of put myself out there, and I was so nervous, but it's worked out really well. So essentially, how it started was that I got on LinkedIn probably, yeah, about 2 years ago, and I was seeing what all these other students were doing. They were getting these internships, and they were getting all these big companies, tech companies, financial services companies, giving them all these awards, and I was like, wow, okay, I'm probably like 2% as good as these people. I could really make something out of my life, right? And then I started commenting, making some connections with some people that have like a lot of following. And then probably like in December of 2018, I saw somebody start to use LinkedIn video, and I was really interested about it. So I reached out to him. He gave me some tips. And then I just got started. I started a series where I reviewed a book on a weekly basis. Yes, I did have to read a lot at that point. But I would just do a 3-minute video, very simple, very basic. I didn't even do any editing, but just like 3 main things that I've learned from the book. Sometimes I would tag the author. And then sometimes, like, when you tag these people, they'll respond and they'll reach out to you. And I actually met one of the authors in one of the books that I covered because she was in Pittsburgh for a conference at CMU. So
No
that was
way.
actually like really, really amazing. Yeah.
That is crazy.
I
Wow.
met her in person. So that was amazing. And I think after that, I mean, I think the first 2, 3 months, nothing much happened. But I think it really started to really just I think the consistency is a big
Yeah.
thing when you do content creation. Like, if you could post once a week, maybe even once every other week, like, you're doing yourself a huge favor there. And just really targeting things that you're passionate about, things that you like. Like, even if you just start on LinkedIn and you're like, okay, I went to this conference, here are the main things that I learned. A lot of times, see, there's other people who wanted to do that conference or are curious about it. And yes, they want to see what you learned, and maybe that would be valuable for their own use, right? So I
Mhm.
think that's what really helped and just catapulted me, and meeting so many amazing people. I got so many opportunities to do speaking, to find, internships. One of the bigger companies that I interviewed for last year for full time actually recruited me off of LinkedIn. And this is a company that it's very, very, very hard to get into. And the recruiter actually came in and referred me. And I was like, okay, this is going to work. And although I didn't get the job at the end of the day, it was an amazing opportunity to go to California, to go to their HQ, to do the interview, to go there. And that's something I don't think, if I had that reach on LinkedIn and I had those, that amount of reach, that's probably something that I never would have been able to experience. And then now, even at my job, like I said, I work in marketing, and we
Exactly.
do a lot of things with LinkedIn
Yeah.
at work because Microsoft owns LinkedIn, so that's like one of their properties that they use quite a bit. And I'm getting people at work, you know, and like I said, if you're young, you might have some new insight. Because I have people on my team who have been doing this for years and years, coming up and asking me, Daniela, how are you getting so much engagement on LinkedIn? And I'm like, let me tell you, no, I don't go that far, but you know, it's awesome because it's like now people go to me at work as a subject matter expert, and I'm like, wait, what? Like I'm 21 years old. Like, how am
Yeah.
I a subject matter expert? But yeah, I think that's super super cool, and it's been a skill that I've been able to leverage at my job. Now it's been something that has really helped me find a lot of opportunities. And one of my favorite things to do is just to encourage, you know, students to just get started reaching out to people. Like I don't know how many people I've reached out to, and I've given them some tips, and they've gone ahead and now they have pretty much their own kind of like LinkedIn bubble, which is super super cool. So yeah, something I would totally recommend. You know, just get started, do something brief, keep it consistent about something that you're passionate about, and just watch the growth, because for me it was absolutely incredible.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And I'm glad that, you know, you have an amazing role right now where you can actually add value and contribute within Microsoft, within like the digital marketing space, which obviously, by the way, the audience, I think you guys have to recognize that this is, like Daniela said, like a compounding effect. It's not like she became a subject matter expert in one day or overnight, right? It was through every single week she posted content, whether that's giving reviews about a book she read and so on and so forth. So it's really that things you do every day that adds up over the long run. And I think that mindset and the commitment, I think, is very important.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you, Daniela. And I think to wrap it up, like I mentioned earlier, I want to end it off with a round of rapid fire questions. I've
Yes.
prepared 10 questions, nothing scary at all, but I think what you'll find out as we go along, the 10 questions, is these questions, I think, based on your responses, will be very insightful for the audience, specifically the college students who are looking for personal and professional development. So are you ready
Yes,
for this?
I'm ready. Yep, let's go.
Okay, first question. What made you decide to accept my request to be a guest speaker?
I really like you as a person. Like we met a peak weekend. Like I said, like we sat next to each other. How many just amazing things that you said. I was like, whoa, like I had never thought of things before that way. And it was really insightful being next to you. I learned so much from you. And I was like, as soon as you reached out, I said, yes, I definitely want to be on his show.
Wow, thank you. I feel
You're
honored. I throw
welcome.
that exactly back to you. I learned a lot from you as well. But that leads perfectly onto the second question. What is your biggest strength?
I think my biggest strength is just really being able to relate to people, and also to be adaptable too. I know I take calls all the time at times. I don't want to take calls. Or there's a lot of times people are just like, I need to adapt to somebody else's style of working or their way of thinking or their way of collaborating. And I
Mhm.
think for that, that's been one of my biggest strengths because, you know, I've been able to really, especially the new job, everybody's working different times and everybody has a different style of working, just really being able to adapt to that, I think that's one of my biggest strengths.
Sounds amazing. Okay, I think that's also one of my strengths as well. So glad that we can relate.
Yeah.
Um, which naturally leads on to the third question. What is your biggest weakness?
Oh, my biggest weakness, oh, getting stuck in my head. I know I mentioned this
Mm.
during the previous discussion, but yeah, I just tend to be a very worrisome person sometimes. So I think it's very easy for me to get trapped in my head for thoughts. So it's definitely just trying to snap myself out before, you know, the cycle gets like too far in is definitely, with the negativity, is definitely something that I'm working on.
Gotcha, gotcha. And give us three adjectives to describe yourself. I think you've already mentioned a couple already, but
Yes, I am adaptable, I am determined, and I'm compassionate.
lovely, lovely, lovely adjectives right there. What is the first thing you do when you get up in the morning?
Oh, first thing I do when I get up in the morning is whew, let me see. I usually take my dog to the dog park. That is usually, I get him some exercise, I get him some food. You know, I love him so much. He's a golden retriever, and he's like
Oh,
one of my main priorities. It's like I want to make sure that this guy is good before I start like, you know, working on myself. So Yeah, no, I definitely try to spend some time with him in the mornings.
That's a good start to the day as well, no? Fresh air with your
Yes,
dog.
fresh air with the dog. Yes.
Yeah. Great. Okay. And best advice you've ever gotten?
Best advice I ever got was from, well, I think one of the most best recent advice that I got is from a senior business program manager on my team. And he
Mhm.
had brought this up to me. We have like a monthly one-on-one, and I just told him I guess some of just my inner thoughts. And he was like, like, it's fine. Just say the things that you want to say in that meeting. And yeah, sometimes it doesn't stick, but sometimes it does. But don't be afraid to like speak up in meetings, provide your ideas. And I've actually took that advice to heart. I've started doing that. And I feel like I'm just making so much more impact now than I was before. Just, sitting around in those meetings, being nervous, being like, I don't understand anything. But like
Yeah.
I said, putting myself out there, even in the work context, which I find harder to do than in the personal context, super helpful.
And I'm sure Microsoft's culture definitely helps you.
For sure. Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, gotcha. And what does leadership mean to you?
Leadership to me means being able to understand, just being a servant, right? Just being able to understand the needs and wants of your team and to be able to proactively manage that. So a lot of my job, I work with product managers, I work with marketers, I work with content writers, I work with email automation teams. And a lot of times it's like, I think something that's so helped me as a leader is be able to kind of see the pain points of the people that I'm working with and then come up with solutions to kind of drive, more impact, or to make sure that everybody's on the same page, or really just to solve problems before they happen. Right.
Mhm.
So that's definitely something that's been really helpful to me in my leadership.
Yeah, that idea of servant leadership, I totally echo that. I would agree. And if I were
Yeah.
to be a leader, that would be like my go-to for sure.
Yes.
Okay. And what is your dream job?
Oh, my dream job. I want to be a product manager, actually. And that's something that I've been thinking about in my current role. I like my job right now in marketing, and it's really great for you able to understand a message, understand an audience, and really just be able to give a really crisp and clean way of saying things. But I'm not in a technical role right now, and that's definitely something that I personally would love to move into the future. So I've been doing a lot of one-on-one informationals with product managers in Azure, which I'm hoping to move into that space.
Mhm.
I just had a mentorship call earlier this week with the principal product manager at Microsoft for one of the Azure products, and she's given me a ton of great resources. So I've started to look into those as well. But yeah, definitely in the next few years, that's my goal, is to move more into the technical space once again.
Gotcha, gotcha. Looking forward to seeing you as a
Yeah.
product manager then in no time, no?
Yes.
Awesome. And last two questions. How did you stay productive in college?
Stay productive. Definitely just having a list. Like, I know it sounds cliche, just writing things down, checking them off. That is the way that I stay productive. I see what I need to do. I know the time that I need to do it in, and I just get it done.
Absolutely, I totally agree. And even to this date, as a student, I still have that my journal up there as well.
Yes.
Gotcha. And to end it off, what was one thing you wish you had done more of in college? I know you touched upon it briefly.
Just took more risk. I mean, I feel like there was points I got afraid to do things. And I just wish I would have just taken a teeny bit more risk, because I took some risk and it paid off a lot. But just imagine if I had done more, right? So, and
Mhm.
also the data science minor, that's the thing that I wish I did and I didn't do. But if I go back to school for a master's eventually, I want to at least do some sort of specialization in that field.
Gotcha, gotcha. And I'm sure there's amazing talent around you in Microsoft where you can learn from as well.
Learn.
So
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
yeah, got it. Good luck with it. So that's an end to the session. Thank you so much, Daniela, for all the insights that you've shared and given us. I think it was a really productive session, and I personally learned a lot from you. I'm motivated to, do well in my master's and finish strong for next year. So
Yes.
thank you again.
Oh, no, absolutely.
Awesome. And for those of you, if you guys found any of the content so far useful, make sure you like and subscribe, turn your notification on so that you don't miss out on future videos as well. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next round. Ciao.